there's probably considerable a lot to condemn and mention. Some of our guys notice some of the harsh reality, or whether the harshness, and whether utterly the madness, the brutal level of the Nazis and what they had done, and whether and also it would contain whether with what it's about to do, Nazi do, and whether Nazi done, and whether Nazi do reason. They frantically run upstairs in frail mode, and that will be it for the hour there. What does a lot of the ministers at various places do about this? Since 1950, the generation has been the most irresponsible set of persons in the talented position. Certainly, suppose we bring back Harry H.S. Truman be at today, or whether since 1990 as a statesman, his take will be completely different. One cannot compare to what his decisions were back then, but that's where the availability is different. It's a different period. Suppose we travel, let those be at those periods, the name wouldn't even be there. So then the comparison sort of thing that's vanished, or that's better. The test is cancelled for a bunch of a little bit similar to cheaters. And what are cheaters? Cheaters? No, cheaters, not cheetahs. Liars, not lions. Who the fuck gives these names? It's like my name is not moron, I'm a Mormon. Oh, that's excellent. That's probably considered as excellent. Life is so actually short and fragile. We are so behind in a lot of tasks. A lot of stuff we haven't done. And apparently a little bit cherish and fun with a little bit party together, it's just too not good. And these Nazis push towards that. And Nazis have Nazi reasons. It's because there are those certain examples, and it has resulted. Those are exceptions and not another type of party. Whether they do drugs or whether it's contained or a subset of, or whether another a type within another type of party, and recent era, whether another types of party the probably could be considered. I wrote extensively on whether scripting a role, whether written and scripting extensively on the blog. There's a lot to be mentioned about it. Lots of topics are covered there. The recent video there, whether the recent mention there, and whether first, whether at before comes like before, and whether at first, or whether just as a before, it's probably to go, and whether to have first of, and whether to come before. So it could be the probable, and whether it's probable to be of the suitable as. Whether to be of the probable to suitable. So I repeat there. Recent and probably to be regardless. The mention towards it's worthy of consideration. The mentions there being a probability, or whether the probabilities, and whether the probabilities, and whether it's worthy, and whether worthy could be worthy of a consideration. That there may not be this biblical, whether this veteran, or whether this very important and very right on this sort of prophecy about Latins. It must be this one. What if it results in such badness? Well, this prophecy is part of another prophecy to maintain until the degen prophecy comes. And then what happens? We have to send 250,000 ISIS. How are we going to do that? These elected middle class all help each other. The cancerist which poses whether have entered middle class and upper class too. The upper class is losing this battle because they're utterly more brutal. And what's up with George Soros? I mean, George Soros, or whether I mentioned, or whether a lot of the, whether I state, or whether I state, matter of the reason, whether it's probably either to be, whether it's both, and whether it's probably to be. A lot are done probably right, but probably it's not even polished. Because suppose some candidates are that smart, he will be great at least one sport. I mean, how hard is this sport? It's actually the skill levels are transferable. One can be smart enough to figure out how to play. Oh, it have physicality problems. So that means, so that represents it's not a humanoid. It's not a humanoid archetype. It cannot do that. Or is it too large because it's like more like shaped like, or rather more like an elephant? So there are certain indicators that's rather, there's certain underperformances at different hobbies that's rather indicator. We should let persons who are actually well-rounded, not persons who themselves didn't really relish, they're really great, but the academic poison, the academic or certain contaminants splash over, and the distorted norms, and whether the liars actually gone to the social acceptance level, and whether the social notions level. Lies are actually quite potent in a way because lies work on these two lanes, and whether these two lanes are pretty potent, are quite potent probably. Whether it's potent, it's probable to go whether it's probable first, and whether there's the social, there's the public acceptance lane, and whether which other lanes, or civil duties lane, and the public, and whether social notions lane. If it's a civil duty, if one tests it out, and sort of one cannot test it out, therefore certain forces forbid actually our guys from doing it. Maybe our lieutenants that are more free comparative could, and reason there probably mainly on whether represent expresses maybe for presentation of or mention of idea and presentation, present of idea, whether present of a mention thereof, and whether also statement of our topic. And the civil duty lane, suppose it was a lie, it wouldn't be questioned. In the social acceptance lane, or social notions lane, or social notions lane, it's not also like checked upon. And overall, our guys probably don't understand what the liars is. The liars don't have to tell lies anymore. We already got the pills. And the social notions became this. So it just has to repeat and be regular. These are going to just re-emphasize defaults, and this whole play is going to go to degen. We'll have indicators of we are winning, we're winning, even with advanced strategy of sending ISIS towards rescue, and we will still have 8 billion by probably 2025 AD, and whether 2025 to deal with, and whether recent measure, and whether at first, I noticed already, just because I mentioned great points, all of a sudden it's applauses. And this applauses hype is actually quite monstrous. Nazis have been doing this fake applauses, doing this fake laughters. They're literally attacking like horses by faking all the hawk noises, the horse usually social sounds. Very, very against our guys. To the Nazism devoted level, and bothers with all that meticulousness. The word meticulous has certain problems. It seems to avoid certain criminal behaviors. So instead, it's not a criminal, it's just being casino. It's just a casino, it's a businessman. Like, whoa, slow down, come on, that's criminal, man. That's like finding poison, or dumping poison in a swimming pool, but name it, he's a successful person. Noticing that? And something about English words probably is so baseless. The definitions are written in some dictionary. What if it's not so much they're going to the degens can erase the dictionary, whether modernity is puppets, but simply whether degeneracy is puppets, and whether degeneracy is puppets. But instead, in whether Masada, and whether or whether end in bracket mark we have. But it will be neglected because instead every person moves more onto the chit chats, which are gossips and useless information these gotten here on a norm that's actually not natural order. By natural order, the creatures at the zoos will be free, and they wouldn't be here, certainly not this prominence and not this promise of safety, as much as there should be more about peace and harmony, and these seem to taken in and converting to whether more about joy, as opposed to brutal war, but both of which, and whether one of which is, and whether both of which is fictional, even if it's one of which was probably, well, which other, and whether rather is probably both, whether which is probably both, it was flashing whether through and what mirror reflection, or whether reflection, or whether it will reflect onto the other. So it's sort of a two. relational status or whether truth. But it should not be sort of, or whether there shouldn't be this utopia. It is right now currently it's this easy mode where there's no battles and such. Why is there this? It seems it is quite at the level of where the description of battles is not glorious. It's about brutalness. It's blood. It's bad. It's just irritating. It's repulsive. It's not to be with. While these fight the passive-aggressive way, using mazes and tricks, and not really excellently using mediocreness. Something about mediocres of humanoids are the hijack corpsing of humanoids, or whether these hijack corpsing, whether the cancers are really are very dangerous, because they can still operate. A majority of the moves don't require athleticism. It doesn't require beauty. These are the ugliest scums, probably on the surface of the world, and have some social status. Why are these claim they're not? Notice that we're being trained and fighting these easy model as if it's Nazis decoys. Those a lot are the slimes that they decoy. The slime will actually impose itself as to be another slime and spray themselves with this Axe sprays and perfumes to hide its ugliness. We have mass terminators around, these robotic Nazis. Dysfunction could be the word, and of the word dysfunction, whether of there could be, and whether of a reason the proper considerable providence, or whether providence could be. The liarist simply whether they distort in the frame which the person checks, and then did I lie by anything, right? That sort of. It doesn't have to literalize. It usually does the opposite, or does worsen, better, or does decrease, or whether lesser than improve. And soon it becomes how much cynicalness these anti-Hitlerists have. The reason their generalization to good view, whether the probable of to view of the probable does to be, whether the probable of to good view, or whether first of the probable of to view. And the king will probably noticing, after the reports Bromir, and whether not mention as a Bromir, or whether mention some names similar to of the alignment, and whether direction of questionable person, and names it plaintiff or defendant, and becomes therefore whether plaintiff and whether criminal, and it becomes Bromir, whether the criminal is guilty. It follows with the procedures. The procedures, the words are not simply words. It contains a lot of glyph marks, right? Even the word young and old, this pair being there is like a glyph mark. Suppose somebody is down, and he's 80 years old, and he's old. What's behind the word old? All that's in a lot of Nazism. It's not so much cynicalism in there, as much as Nazism of this metaphor, and whether of this context. And whether the context types, and whether the context type, or whether or whether just the context type, or whether types, or whether types, or whether type, and just the context of. Right. The dramatists will be fake nice, and the very fake nice has already got to the public poison. It's the social level. The Yu-Gi-Oh card players somehow are. Sure, some of them might have hygiene issues, but the hygiene issue come from actually the Nazism threats and intimidation infliction, and whether infliction effort and whether effort stuff. But that's not a problem. It doesn't result to that. There should be this repulse towards that. If therefore it's like a moral wrong. Yu-Gi-Oh card players are not dangerous, but it becomes dangerous because the Nazis keep distorting it. Nazis got to way too large. It's almost the entire school program. It's not even for Henry. It's not for any Henry Kissinger. It's not for the New World Order ministers. It's entirely for this elected middle class, which is actually the boss. And while they are playing the president game, swoon around president to get payments, which utterly could not get. A lot of the extremists going, so probably nature as much as logic. There's certain a lot is probably It's more not logic. It's more probably religious. But the word probably comes by as contaminated since the Nazis use it. With a vast of mimicries and also the degeneracies, and when there's modernity's puppets, and whether puppets, muppets, and parrots, and whether just and whether the puppets probable of to go also the view of the recent which whether the recent and whether the probable of the suitable, and the view and whether the probable to go view and the suitable, the probable to go view. Filtering out reason there concept was of this so much useless information there. Nazis are very much out there. Maybe mention also crowd dramatism in there, and this doesn't really have to be doing something in particular, because the social norms level has been contaminated into. This elected to middle class controls this whole place, and control to the point they insisted the Illuminati controls. Should we then give the 7 billion the guns? Probably not give them the rifles, but destroy those with the rifles. The cancers are spreading each day, guys. 230,000 a day. Like, that's why we're not going to prevail. And what's the opposite of word winning? Lose. What's that supposed to mean? It's just going to be always a joke? No, they are really serious with it. They pretendishly like somebody. It's very nice. This is complimentary whether they're associated with a contaminated what is nice. So these are all fake. It's rather fake. And checked upon with a fake lens, and it becomes probably not so fake. It will be interactively too. And with the preemptively probably adapted to the statement a little bit. And on the absence of much whether preemptive probably talks whether just whether with retrieval of the reason and whether a state by the remark of a recent end or whether or in whether to probable also to be of whether and or whether there to probable to be in the absence of much of adaptation to this statement, it doesn't indicate and therefore they're weak. Their main is probably tumor cancer spreading and using all these lamorous strategies. Zerg strategies, and whether Zomberist, and whether Nazism strategies, and whether Zomberist Nazi strategies, and whether Zomberist Nazism strategies to probably also to be understood. Right. Notice in the enemies is quite potent. We're not gonna get rid of this planet, this 7 billion. They had eroded. Whether the planet is effectively almost the Nazis. It's a Nazi planet. It's like we came to Mars, and this parking lot is a Mars parking lot. Buildings after buildings after buildings after building of these modernity structures. And the green lawn is actually used to attrition grind and keep the policy. We notice all that trickeries in this, utterly ruthless and out of principleness. So with the dramatism of Nisus, then it comes, they don't necessarily throw and use the effort. Party-Nazism, whether Partism is very much out there. Passive-aggressive, these killerists, and whether Nazis, and whether entities, and whether cancerists, and whether before the recent, before the recent, and whether before entities there. Thus, instead, damages like reject, neglect, and keep these divided slashes or ragged inflections into these major, into much smaller versions, into 100 pieces, into much number-based. So each time it's not registerable, and that's how a lot of our guys end up the homeless. Noticing there's not a single homeless. That's not genuine. This is the exclusive ongoing war by these entities that haven't been recently can be considered by generalization. That haven't been punished and taught a major lesson by Genghis Khan II. By taught a lesson, a lot of those will have to be removed, as the case was the Genghis Khan. first, and whether first link and whether link is first, and that will be at the minimum level. And the ultimate decision whether the finalization of these project submissions, or whether the mission briefing, and whether the goals of these, a lot of description, contents of the whether the plans of the mission, and whether the plans of mission, and whether the missions and the operations will be finalized by the Social Justice Committee and various different names, or whether various different groups and agencies, whether groups and committees, whether groups and alliances, whether groups and national forces, and whether groups and forces, or rather, whether and whether just or rather, by various national forces, or whether forced by various forces of countries, and whether nations together themselves, or whether nations together, countries and whether nations together, to have, and whether of probable either, and whether to both, and whether to probable of to be suitable of, and to probable to also to be of, and to suitable of, and whether to probable of to be of to suitable, and whether reason, and whether to probable of to could be of, to probable to also to could be of, and whether to probable of to could be of, whether reason, and whether to probable of to could be to of, to probable of to could be also to of, or whether to probable to could be of to also of, and whether to probable to could be of.